You're in the wrong class, sweetheart. Yoga studios down the hall. An elite marksman burst into laughter when he saw Eliza. Petite frame, neatly braided hair, stepping onto the military training ground with a sniper rifle. Nobody took her seriously, but when the final qualifying round arrived, a bone-chilling crack echoed across the range. Her bullet didn't just hit the bullseye, it split the reinforced steel target, clean in half. Everything changed in that moment. Eliza Monroe, 34 years old, a civilian defense contractor who had volunteered for the military's most exclusive advanced marksmanship program, a course typically reserved only for elite special operations personnel. Her petite 5'4" frame, neatly braided auburn hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and soft-spoken demeanor made her an instant target for ridicule the moment she stepped onto Fort Braxton's legendary sniper range. A group of battle-hardened Special Forces soldiers exchanged knowing glances and snickered when she appeared at the armory, requesting her assigned Barrett M82A1 sniper rifle. "Ma'am, you sure you're in the right place?" Corporal Kane Martinez laughed. "Yoga classes are in Building C. The targets here aren't meditation cushions." His squad erupted in laughter. "Maybe she's lost," another added. "This ain't no weekend warrior camp." Eliza didn't react to their taunts. She quietly signed out her equipment, methodically adjusted her rifle's bipod, checked her scope mounting, and began noting wind direction and atmospheric pressure readings like a ritual she'd performed thousands of times before. What they didn't know was that she'd learned these habits from her late father, Master Sergeant David Monroe, a legendary Army sniper who held records that still stood 20 years after his death in Afghanistan. Even Gunnery Sergeant Reynolds, the gruff head instructor with 30 years of combat experience, seemed visibly reluctant when reviewing her volunteer application paperwork. "Listen, lady," he muttered under his breath, "shooting paper targets at the local gun club is one thing. Staying mentally composed when everyone around you expects you to wash out, that's a completely different battlefield." Throughout her first grueling week of training, she wasn't issued standard equipment like the other candidates. Instead, she was handed a beat-up, outdated rifle that belonged in a military museum, complete with a scratched scope and a trigger that pulled inconsistently. "Equipment malfunction," the quartermaster said with barely concealed amusement. "It's all we got available for civilians." Eliza remained patient and professional. Day after day, she spent her evenings in the empty barracks, practicing controlled breathing techniques, maintaining detailed logs of wind patterns, temperature fluctuations, and precise distance measurements from every conceivable shooting position on the range. As the weeks progressed and the final elimination round approached, Corporal Kane's mockery became increasingly public and cruel. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present Eliza the Easy Miss," he announced during mess hall. "Place your bets on how spectacularly she'll choke when it counts." The dining hall erupted in laughter and jeers. She never responded to the harassment, but from his observation post, Major Harrison Morgan watched everything through his binoculars. Something about her unshakable composure under relentless pressure made him hesitate before writing her dismissal papers. 3 weeks into the program, during a routine qualification exercise, a malfunctioning electronic target system caused Eliza's perfectly calculated shot to register as a complete miss. Despite her wind readings, distance calculations, and trigger control being absolutely flawless, Corporal Kane seized this opportunity like a predator sensing weakness. "Well, well, well," he announced loudly enough for the entire range to hear. "Looks like our little princess has been fudging those fancy wind charts of hers. All that scribbling in your notebook. Just for show, huh?" Several other trainees nodded in agreement, their respect for her already minimal. Eliza was immediately ordered to report to the command office for performance reevaluation and possible program termination. All her personal equipment, training materials, and her father's precious notebook were confiscated pending investigation. Around the sprawling training facility, whispers and rumors began spreading like wildfire among the 200 active personnel. She only got accepted because she's the daughter of some dead war hero. Probably never fired a real rifle before volunteering for this program. Using Daddy's reputation to get special treatment. Just another diversity quota they had to fill. Eliza sat alone in her sterile quarters, gripping the only thing they'd allowed her to keep, a faded photograph of her father in full combat gear, taken during his final deployment. One moonless night, while walking back from the latrine, she heard the distinct sound of unauthorized gunfire echoing from the restricted training area. Through a gap in the fence, she witnessed Kane's inner circle conducting illegal after-hours practice sessions using prohibited armor-piercing ammunition. She immediately reported the violation to the duty officer, but when investigated the next morning, no evidence remained, and Kane's crew provided each other with airtight alibis. Trying to eliminate your competition through false accusations? Sergeant Reynolds asked with obvious disgust. That's lower than I expected, even from you. The accusation of lying destroyed what little credibility she had remaining among the training staff. Eliza said nothing in her defense. She simply returned to her quarters and continued studying tactical shooting diagrams as if absolutely nothing had happened. The social isolation became suffocating. During mealtimes, conversations would stop when she approached tables. Equipment assignments were always delayed when it was her turn. Her shooting lane was frequently the one with malfunctioning equipment or unclear target visibility. Kane's harassment escalated to new levels of cruelty. Maybe you should try something more suited to your delicate nature, he suggested during a particularly brutal day of field exercises. I hear the base library needs someone to organize romance novels. His loyal followers would laugh on command, creating an echo chamber of humiliation. But Eliza maintained her rigorous personal routine. Every morning at precisely 5 a.m., she ran the base perimeter alone, regardless of weather conditions. Every evening, she practiced breathing exercises and mental visualization in the empty equipment storage room. Major Morgan continued his discreet observations from the command tower. Her complete lack of emotional reaction to sustained psychological warfare was unlike anything he'd witnessed in 3 decades of military service. She never complained to superior officers, never argued with her tormentors, never showed the slightest crack in her professional demeanor. The final elimination challenge was announced with ceremony. Each remaining candidate would face a single, maximum difficulty shot at a specially designed target. Miss it, and immediate dismissal from the program with a permanent ban from reapplication. One bullet, one opportunity, one chance to prove you belong here, Sergeant Reynolds announced. Failure means you leave this installation immediately and never return. That night, Eliza sat on her narrow bunk, staring at her father's photograph in the dim light. She whispered to his memory, I hope I absorbed enough of your wisdom, Dad. Tomorrow I either honor your legacy or disgrace it completely. The elimination day dawned gray and windy. The target was a specially manufactured, reinforced steel plate measuring 12 inches in diameter, positioned at exactly 950 yards distance, with unpredictable cross winds gusting up to 15 miles per hour. 23 candidates remained from the original 50 volunteers. The shooting order was determined by previous performance rankings. Kane, currently ranked first in the program, would shoot early to set the competitive standard. Eliza, ranked dead last due to her equipment malfunction incident, would shoot final. Kane approached the firing line with theatrical confidence, his custom-modified rifle gleaming in the morning light. He took his position, made subtle adjustments, and fired within 30 seconds. His bullet struck the outer ring of the target's bullseye. Not perfect, but impressively accurate given the challenging conditions. The assembled crowd of instructors, candidates, and base personnel erupted in enthusiastic applause. That's how it's done, Kane announced, raising his arms in premature victory. Good luck following that performance, Princess. One by one, the other marksmen took their shots. Some hit the target's outer edges. Several missed completely. A few came close to Kane's result, but none exceeded it. Finally, Eliza's name was called. She approached the firing line carrying the same battered museum piece M82A1 rifle she'd been assigned on day one. Unlike the others, she declined the computerized wind-reading equipment and advanced ballistic calculators. Instead, she pulled out a small piece of thread and held it up to gauge wind direction manually, exactly as her father had taught her during childhood hunting trips. The crowd began murmuring with amusement. Is she seriously using string to measure wind? This is painful to watch. Someone should put her out of her misery. Eliza took precisely 90 seconds to adjust her shooting position, rifle cant, and scope settings. To the impatient observers, this seemed like an eternity of hesitation. Major Morgan raised his military-grade binoculars and focused intently on her technique. Kane crossed his arms confidently. This is honestly embarrassing. She's obviously choking under pressure. Eliza controlled her breathing using the 4-count method her father had drilled into her. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold empty for 4 seconds. She felt the wind patterns against her face, calculated the precise trajectory accounting for bullet drop, atmospheric pressure, and temperature, made microscopic adjustments for her rifle's known mechanical inconsistencies. In her mind, she heard her father's voice from 20 years ago. The rifle is merely a tool, sweetheart. Your disciplined mind is the actual weapon. Trust your preparation. She placed her finger on the trigger and applied steady, consistent pressure. The rifle fired with a thunderous crack that echoed across the entire base. For what seemed like an eternity, nothing happened. Then from 950 yards away came a sharp metallic ping, followed by an impossible sound, the distinctive noise of metal tearing apart. The target had split vertically down its exact center, creating 2 perfectly equal halves that swung independently on their mounting brackets. The entire shooting range fell into complete, stunned silence. Major Morgan slowly lowered his binoculars, his weathered face showing genuine amazement. Precision to the molecular level, he said quietly. In 30 years of military service, I have never witnessed marksmanship of this caliber. He walked directly to Eliza. Where did you learn that advanced wind compensation technique? Eliza allowed herself the smallest smile. Ghost Division, 1st Battalion, my father's unit in Afghanistan. One of the older instructors suddenly straightened with recognition. Wait, Monroe, Master Sergeant David Monroe was your father? Yes, sir. Jesus Christ, the instructor whispered. David Monroe didn't just teach marksmanship. He revolutionized it. We still study his techniques in advanced courses. The revelation spread through the crowd like electricity. Kane stood frozen, his confident expression replaced by shock and grudging respect. That afternoon, he was formally reprimanded for his illegal training violations, which had been thoroughly investigated after Eliza's initial report proved accurate. Major Morgan made the official announcement. Eliza Monroe is hereby accepted into the Strategic Precision Division with full honors. She is the first civilian contractor to achieve this distinction in our program's 40-year history. The applause started slowly with one person clapping, then another. Soon the entire range resonated with the sound of earned respect. Eliza had done more than hit a target. She had shattered every assumption about what determination looks like. The morning Eliza departed the training facility to assume her new position in the Strategic Operations Division, every soldier, instructor, and staff member lined the main corridor in full-dress uniform to salute her achievement. Corporal Kane stepped forward from the formation, removed his cap, and addressed her directly. Ma'am, I owe you a sincere apology. I completely misjudged your character and abilities. I've never seen anyone maintain composure under that level of sustained pressure, and that final shot, it was absolutely incredible. Eliza looked him in the eyes. Maintaining composure was the only skill I could develop when everyone around me wanted to see me fail. But I want you to know something important. Your doubts made me stronger. Within 48 hours, military publications nationwide picked up her story. The article titled "The One Shot That Split the Silence" went viral across social media platforms, inspiring thousands of women considering military careers. The photograph of the split target became iconic, shared millions of times with captions about perseverance and exceeding expectations. 1 week later, the Pentagon contacted Eliza with an unprecedented offer. Would she consider developing and leading a specialized training program called Precision Under Extreme Pressure, designed specifically for elite military marksmen? She accepted immediately. At the program's inaugural ceremony, Eliza stood before 60 of America's most accomplished snipers and special operations personnel. The audience included Medal of Honor recipients and legendary figures from every branch of military service. She began her opening address with characteristic directness. I'm Eliza Monroe. 6 months ago, I was told I belonged in a yoga class instead of on a military shooting range. Respectful laughter rippled through the assembly. But here's what I discovered during my training. The most powerful weapon you possess isn't your rifle, your scope, or your ammunition. It's your ability to remain calm when everyone expects you to break. She held up her father's worn notebook, now returned to her possession. Every insult, every dismissive comment, every moment someone expected me to quit, I documented it all, not for revenge but as motivation fuel. The room was completely silent, hanging on every word. Because when you're consistently underestimated, you develop something that others lack, the element of surprise combined with unshakable determination. After her presentation, Kane approached her privately. I want to make a public apology for my unprofessional behavior. Already forgotten, Eliza replied, but I want you to understand something. Your skepticism forced me to become better than I ever imagined possible. In a strange way, you helped create the marksman I became. Kane nodded thoughtfully. I learned never to judge a sniper by their appearance. Judge them by their precision, Eliza agreed. Not everyone who appears gentle lacks strength. Not everyone who remains silent has nothing important to say. Eliza needed only one bullet, but her target wasn't just steel. She shattered stereotypes with surgical precision. She split prejudice cleanly down the middle, and she created an echo that will resonate forever. Sometimes the quietest person in the room makes the loudest impact. Sometimes the most underestimated becomes the most unforgettable. Sometimes one perfect shot changes everything. The target was reinforced steel, but what she actually destroyed was the barrier saying she didn't belong.